The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Good evening and welcome to my State of Mind. I am Dan York. Governor Raimondo offers her swan song with the State of the State speech this week, and House Republicans are just a mess. Two of the matters that we'll tackle, along with what's our new governor do and how does he succeed? Joe Cammarano, political scientist at PC, and Joe Fleming, Fleming Associates and 12 News pollster, will be my guest this evening. Here's what 12 News reported on Wednesday night after Gina Raimondo's speech.
2021 will be our year of rebuilding.
Governor Gina Raimondo setting a tone of hope and resilience for the year ahead, a year where she plans to end her second term nearly 2 years early and pass the baton to a new leader.
And I know that Lieutenant Governor McKee is going to be ready for this job on day one.
Raimondo also reflecting on her past 6 years in office, listing job creation, infrastructure improvements, and upgrades to the state's schools among her top accomplishments. But in the Republican response, State Senator Jessica Dela Cruz said there's more work to be done, particularly in the area of education.
We can no longer allow a child's zip code or a family's wealth to determine the quality of their education. So I say to you tonight, Rhode Island, we must stop failing our schools. Now is the time for decisive action.
Inside what would normally be a packed House chamber, just the first family, 2 staff members, and the Senate President and House Speaker.
It was vintage Gina Raimondo. It was her, very optimistic, very positive, very much of the state that she loves.
As the state's first female governor prepares to end her time as Rhode Island's chief executive, calling it a bittersweet moment, Raimondo closed with this message to young girls watching at home.
The world needs you. And I am sure looking forward to the day that one of you is the governor of this great state.
Joe Cammarano, PC professor to your top left. Joe Fleming, who is analysis on WPRI 12 and our sister stations on the bottom. Guys, thanks very much for joining me. We're recording this program again on Thursday morning, so we have a reaction to the Wednesday night farewell speech, State of the State speech, self-reflective speech, empty venue speech. There was a lot going on there last night. Good evening, guys, and thanks very much for joining me. Let me go to the top and move it around. Professor Cammarano, take on Gina Raimondo's reflections last night?
Well, I found it to be reserved and careful, but actually quite generous and thoughtful. And I know the governor means much of what she said, particularly about women and girls. And so it was kind of a nice farewell. It was a valedictory, I thought.
Joe?
Well, I thought it was a good speech. I think she hit on a lot of her high points over the 6 years. I think things that she'll be remembered for, such as roadworks, which was controversial when it started, but people are seeing what's happening now on the roads and bridges, and they're pretty happy with it. I think the education section was strong for her with the pre-K, the full-day kindergarten, the Promise program at CCRI, and the rebuilding of the schools with the bond money. So I think she hit on some of her strong points that down the road, I think people are going to remember what Gina Raimondo did in the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's really important to get perspective outside of my window, right? And the way I think of things. I think more people have got to do that on a whole bunch of different levels. We're not listening to each other very much, and so as I listened to both of you with seemingly high grades for this last night, I think to myself, all right, check yourself at the door. You see this through this perspective that others see it through. Because frankly, I suffered through it last night. I suffered through it. First of all, she had a cold, and that's not something you can, or she had a swallowing thing going. So aesthetically, and that's not something you blame her for. That's just like, take a drink of water, because when you got that thing going on the whole time, it slows you down. And you can't blame her for COVID. And COVID has created empty venues, right? All over the place. Ironically, I'm the public address announcer at URI basketball, and I didn't see the speech until I saw it on DVR last night because I had to call a game in an empty arena. We watch empty ball games. So that the State House of Representatives was an empty gallery added an eerie sameness to what we've been doing. And I honestly, it took me by surprise because I didn't think she'd do that. I thought that she would find another cozy fireside from where to deliver that speech. That in and of itself was weird, but tell me, did it strike you as weird?
Well, I want to pick up on that. I would give it a B+ speech. The generalities I thought was good. I think Joe was right. The details are going to be her marker for what she wants to be remembered for. But, this crisis isn't over, and we're probably about to enter the darkest period before the vaccinations are widespread. And so I wish she had said, yeah, things were still okay, but we're not out of the woods. She did say that, but then she went and said, we're about ready to end the pandemic. No, we're not. And that troubled me a bit.
Well, given that the pandemic is the most pressing thing in our lives in recent history, I don't know how she got a B+ by sugarcoating it, but you got your own grading system. I want to be in your class, Joe, because it seems like a B+ might be easy to.
It's below the median these days.
Well,
Joe?
She started off talking about the pandemic. The first couple of pages of her speech was all about the pandemic. I think where she lacked in it was at the very end. She talked about the vaccines rolling out. But I think she should have explained that we're still having problems getting the vaccines out in the state of Rhode Island. And the new governor has to work on that a lot more to really streamline that so people can get their vaccine a lot easier. I think that's where she was lacking when she talked about the pandemic.
Yeah, well, look, I think we always, no matter if it's normal times or not, we make a lot of these state of the state speeches. There's a lot of, retro looking back over a year's period of time that's usually part of the process, cumulative, and then a kind of a scene setter as to, what we can expect and what the priorities are going to be. She's not really in a place to set many priorities because she's on the way out the door. Her reflection, I think, was 6 years in total because, she's kind of saying goodbye. So it was a farewell address. It was not much to say other than I'm confident. I mean, she said the right things about Dan McKee, right? She said, she's confident that he's going to do the right things. At the same time, if you're inside it all, if you know anything about what's happening, and the journalists in this community do, I just hope that there's this notion that the transition is a healthy one, is properly positioned, because it's not. She hadn't spoken to him for a year prior to this whole thing. She's had one conversation with him since, one appearance, and as I understand it, it's not smooth. And we still have this gap where she's not appointed yet. We got to talk about that. I mean, because the confirmation process could by the time you've seen the show this weekend, it could have happened yesterday, or it may not happen for 2 weeks. And those 2 weeks in this COVID crisis matter, don't you think?
Yeah, I gotta say that was another area where I was less than pleasantly surprised. I thought that she could have framed it differently, so that she said, "Look, McKee is going to continue what we did, but you've got to help him in ways that maybe you've helped me or not helped me. Stand behind him, support him." She didn't do that. She said, "Oh, he's going to continue what I'm going to do." And that bothered me a little. But again, politicians tend to be egocentric, and I sort of passed it off to her desire to sort of be the center.
Yeah, Joe, you make a good point, because Joe F., I'm not sure she's cheerleading for Dan McKee to do well. Sorry, I'm not sure she is.
Well, I think she's hoping he does well in the sense that, her programs that she started can continue and move forward. And the number one thing Dan McKee is going to work on is obviously the pandemic. And she's hoping that goes well. There's no question about that, because she's got some very high marks over the last year on her handling of this pandemic. And I don't think she wants to see it fall apart towards the end as the vaccines comes out. I think she wants to see Dan McKee do well there. As far as the other programs, Dan McKee is a very smart person who's going to change things to what he sees best for the state of Rhode Island. No
So,
question.
yeah, so there's a great point, and Professor Cammarano is nodding in regarding those high marks. Joe Fleming, you and I have talked about this. And this is not only is your overall expertise important here, but your wheelhouse is analyzing numbers. And we've talked about that prior to COVID, she had, 34, 35, 37% favorability ratings. Her operational deficiencies were bleeding over her review, UHIP and DCYF, and there were a handful of things that she was not perceived to be managing well. Then COVID came, and we all went into a fetal position. She seized the moment. She did a lot of the right stuff early. She got to 70+%, and then, of course, it naturally erodes. But I will tell you, this last 6 weeks, where she was professing 24/7 obsession with serving the community on the virus, and then bang, she goes and does a quick little, I'm not answering questions, does the perp walk, into the cars, never talks to the press, and has left McKee still kind of hanging in the balance. I think her legacy and favorability are going to be affected forevermore on that. You tell me, I got a shaking head in the top left. You tell me that her legacy is about this virus. Well, guess what? We're not done yet. We're going to get a strain and a half coming by the spring. You'd have to sell me on the idea that resonating, down the line is going to be a very high mark for Gina Raimondo. I'm perplexed by that, Joe Fleming.
No, I think her numbers have gone up big time. We did a Hasselfeld survey where we had like 81% gave her a favorable job rating on the pandemic. This was back last spring.
Yeah.
The thing is now, by not being around for the last 6 weeks and not talking to anybody, her numbers are definitely going to come down. Because I think people felt she may have deserted them publicly.
Right.
Because they looked at her as the face of keeping things stable in Rhode Island. When she was out there every day or every other day, people felt good. They felt safe with her talking what's going on. Now she's not there. I mean, to her defense, I have to believe the Biden administration was the ones who asked her not to speak.
So
Marty Walton, I'm just saying.
All the high-level piles are telling me, Dan, you just got to understand, this is about securing the nomination. This is the way the game is played. Blah, 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 blah. This is the culture. Who cares? She's not a CEO. She's not a nonprofit leader. She's the governor of 1,050,000 people that she professed 24/7 obsession in helping this virus, and then she walked away. I'm sorry. Joe Biden's team can stow it. As far as I'm concerned, that is. I don't care what the culture is. Joe Cammarano, you're going to tell me that this is an institutional necessity, that she shuts up and leaves her responsibility for 6 weeks?
Well, I do think that when you put your face in front of the camera every day and then you stop it, you suffer criticism like the unreasonable criticism you just laid against her. The reality is, in 2 years, we're going to know whether Gina Raimondo's leadership of COVID actually is going to determine her legacy. Right now, we're looking at what's going on now. But in a year and a half, we're going to have a different viewpoint. And so these numbers are always dynamic. So I would say we're going to have to wait and see. And if McKee does a good job, McKee's going to benefit and Raimondo's going to benefit.
Yeah, okay. Let me say this. Continuing with my unreasonability, should she come back, Joe, as the speech goes in Rhode Island politics, as the storyline rather goes, Jack Reed retires and Gina Raimondo seeks the Senate. You're telling me that the way she's left is not going to dog her?
Absolutely not.
You say absolutely not. Joe Fleming, you say?
That's 6 years down the road, Dan. That's ancient history in politics. And that's assuming Jack Reed doesn't run. And again, she's been away from the state in 6 years. There's going to be other politicians coming up the ranks who may be more in line for the Senate seat if Jack Reed doesn't run. So you don't really know. I don't know how much this will dog her because it'll be 6 years later. And again, in 6 years, her legacy will be cemented. It doesn't happen right away. I think of Bruce Sunland. When he put the airport, when he changed the terminal, he got a lot of criticism on that. Now people are saying, what a great move that was, doing the terminal. So it takes a long time before your legacy is cemented sometimes. But 6 years is a long time in politics.
And I got to tell you, her work in commerce is going to be more deterministic of her prospects for the Senate than being governor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because everybody in Burrillville is going to be watching that real closely. All right, guys.
Yeah, again, trust me.
Oh, okay. All right. You know,
Trust me, you know what you're talking
guess
about.
Guess what? You're both my dear friends. We all have to get out of our tunnel every once in a while. When we come back, we'll talk about the Dan McKee's challenge, and maybe we'll have a few minutes for this mess in Washington and the Republican Party. And who are they? We'll be right back with Professor Cammarano and Joe Fleming on My State of Mind. Stay with us. Welcome back to My State of Mind with Professor Cammarano and Joe Fleming. Dan McKee will either has the job, and I'm doubting he does this weekend, or 2 weeks from now. Can we agree that, not like the Clinton theme, is the economy stupid right now? It's the vaccine stupid, right? Isn't that where we are?
Absolutely. No question about that. How Dan McKee handles the vaccine rollout in the state of Rhode Island could determine when he runs for governor in 2022 on if he gets elected for a full term as governor. If he handles it really well, people will be impressed. They see a strong leader. That'll help him. It may also keep a lot of other Democrats out of the race for governor in 2022.
Joe?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is McKee's opportunity to show everybody that he's a hard worker and he's a policy guy, and he'll get things done. And he may actually get things done quieter than Raimondo.
Well, he's got a different approach. She's very top down. She one of her, she made some good decisions over the course of her time. I have to give her that. But she is a top down leader, and he he has a combination. Don't think he doesn't have an ego. They all do to get to this level. But he is. We all do. But he does. But he's much more of a consensus guy, and he very much wants to build from the bottom up, right, Mr. Fleming? I mean, he's a municipal consensus guy. That's his comfort zone. That's the lake he likes to swim in, and he's going to keep swimming.
There's no question. I'm from Cumberland, so I've seen him as mayor of Cumberland operating, and he will delegate. The big thing for him is going to be surrounding himself with the right people, smart people that can help him get things done. Keep the people for the Raimondo administration he thinks are going to be very valuable, and I'm sure he'll replace some of those people. But he's going to delegate things, and he's going to be a very different type governor than Governor Raimondo, no question.
Do you guys think that I rode in the Valley Breeze this weekend. I just think he's making a mistake, having a contest for lieutenant governor. Look, to his credit, he jacked up the level of lieutenant governor with a lot of an entrepreneurial effort on the small business side, and his education, high marks, charter schools, the whole thing. I just think appoint an elder person who a seasoned person who could be governor. In case, God forbid, he gets hit by a bus, and take the politics out right now. He wants that to be a tandem. I don't think we're going to get a constitutional change for 2022 to run the governor and lieutenant governor together, but he's always wanted to tandem team that ad hoc or formally. Give yourself a year to find a partner, and whoever you appoint now, promises not to run again and just gets to the job. Why pick winners and losers, Joe Fleming? Does that make any sense to you?
Well, Dan, I've been saying that right along. In my opinion, a smart thing, we're going to put somebody in there who's not going to run for lieutenant governor in 2022, maybe a small business person, and they can keep doing what he's been doing for the past 6 years, working with small business. On the other hand, I think what he's thinking about is simply, if I get somebody in there right now who could work with me and we could run as a team, even though we won't be on the ballot together in 2022, that could help me get elected. And again, the big thing's the Democratic primary, getting somebody there that could help him. I think those are the two trains of thoughts that he's looking at.
Yeah, well, it seems to me, going back to the beginning, Joe Cammarano, it's the vaccine stupid. Do the job, and that will take care of itself.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I personally think lieutenant governor, structurally, from a political science perspective, really should run as a team with the governor. It's been very odd watching the lieutenant governor since I moved to Rhode Island almost 25 years ago. So I like the idea. I think in the interim, find someone who's going to be a team member. And I don't think McKee should worry about whether this person's going to run against them or, be competition. I think he should just hire someone he thinks can do the job he needs.
Oh boy, there's a lot of daggards and players up at the State House that would I don't know. I just think, get the job done, get somebody you can trust who's loyal to you, who won't be in the picture in 2 years, and find yourself a partner if you think you want to. Go dating. When we come back, there are two players in the Republican Party that have the national attention on both sides of the impeachment spectrum. What does the national GOP do when we come back? Stay with us. We only have a couple of minutes here. House Republicans on Wednesday night got a standing ovation for the Georgia Congresswoman who's, QAnon and now apologizes for the half a dozen wacky things that she said. And Liz Cheney, the third in command, survives a vote to strip her of that role because of her, I think, maybe the best presentation on rationale for impeachment that she offered. Josie, what's your take, as quick as you can, on how they go?
Yeah, all right. The Republican Party needs to rediscover its authenticity. And I think we're seeing a very sad thing going on right now. And if they don't get their act together, our whole system's in trouble, because we need two reasonable political parties. And right now we only have one.
Mr. Fleming?
Well, I think we're seeing the Republicans as what they say in public and what they do in private. We saw that last night. Congresswoman Cheney didn't just survive it. She won the vote very large, 145 to 60 something. And that was because they voted by secret ballot. Right. So when no one knows how they're voting, they'll support the traditional Republican. In public, though, they're still afraid of Donald Trump and all that goes with him. And so they're afraid to say anything. But privately, I think they feel a different way. So the question is, can the Republicans get this to a point where they can say it publicly?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I think Professor Cammarano is right, along with your good thoughts. We need a healthy party, and right now it's in triage. And
by the way, we need one in Rhode Island too.
That is another show,
yes.
Or 10, or we've already done 100 of them. But yeah, Joe Cammarano, thank you so much. Joe Fleming, thank you so much. When we come back, final word. We'll keep a close eye on this transition between Raimondo and McKee. Clock is ticking there, no doubt. And of course, we'll talk to you on the radio weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great night.